this evening, two newsworthy international stories. First, Russia, Ukraine, could there be a thaw? And second, Canada's national emergency. So let's start with that extraordinary global limbo, so to speak, as far as Russia and Ukraine are concerned. There are now conflicting signals, dire warnings and threats, and a lot of confusion. The latest, President Putin has said that Russia has decided to partially pull back troops. Now, it's not clear how many troops are being pulled back, or when, or from where. In fact, NATO's General Secretary has said that they haven't seen any signs of a de-escalation just yet. So, as of now, about 100,000 Russian soldiers on Ukraine's borders to the east, the south, and 30,000 close to the Belarus-Ukraine border in the north are in attack positions, so to speak. In fact, there have been several videos that have been shot by residents living in some of the border towns that are showing large-scale deployment of just about everything, from submarines landing ships in the Black Sea to short-range ballistic missiles, tanks, and howitzers. So that announcement by President Putin isn't really suggesting that the possibility of an invasion or war is completely over. In fact, a dozen countries have asked their diplomats and citizens to leave Ukraine. India has issued an advisory asking its citizens, especially the 20,000 odd Indian students, to return home. Now, this is going to be tricky because several airlines have decided to halt flights to Ukraine and through the country's airspace. As of now, with each passing day, the word war is still being used repeatedly by leaders, even as diplomatic efforts are continuing. The US, UK, Germany, and France are trying to mediate between Russia and Ukraine. The latter simply doesn't know which side to believe, really, because remember, up until last week, it was downplaying any possibility of an invasion, and Ukraine is now preparing troops and leaning on leaders of some of these countries to come and solve for peace. We've covered the genesis of this conflict in a perfect primer video on Russia and Ukraine, which I'm linking in the top right corner for you all to see. But just in brief, Russia is continuing to push for its two central demands: less NATO presence in Eastern Europe and a guarantee that Ukraine never joins NATO. Now, NATO has repeatedly rejected this second demand. It has also deployed additional troops to countries around Ukraine. Several of them, remember, are former Soviet Union, so that they can respond hard and fast if Russia invades. Russia, on the other hand, saying it won't cross the border unless Western forces enter Ukraine. In fact, it's offered to continue diplomatic efforts to defuse the situation, much to the surprise of many. So in some ways, this is a high-stakes, complex game of who's going to blink first. Now, the implications for Europe, of course, are tremendous, considering a third of the natural gas supply in Europe comes from Russia.
India has so far been silent. Part of the reason is almost 60% of India's military supplies are Russian manufactured, at a time when there is some degree of conflict at both the LOC and the LAC. Before we head to Canada, another important aspect to consider is America's military-industrial complex that has moved out of Afghanistan, as also its own domestic politics that is really struggling to justify a muscular response should Russia invade Ukraine. If you'd like us to delve deeper into this topic, please leave a comment. A mid-video reminder here to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Instagram handle. We do news that is worthy of your time. The second story, a rare mass protest against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau across Canada that has forced him to declare a national public order emergency for the first time in half a century. This national emergency gives the government the powers to remove protesters by force. It has the powers to arrest, seize, freeze bank accounts, and more without court permits. Now, the Freedom Convoy protests began in January by truckers against vaccine mandates, but it has since then turned into a protest by various sections of society against the Trudeau administration. In Ottawa, the nation's capital, between 400 to 500 trucks have been parked in the city centre for over 18 days. Alberta, Emerson, Manitoba, Toronto, they've all seen protests. In some cases, protesters have also been arrested for carrying guns or Nazi or Confederate flags. Protesters have also blocked a key US-Canada border crossing, the Ambassador Bridge, that accounts for a quarter of all US-Canada trade. There are some who believe that the decision of the public order emergency may have been partly influenced by US pressure. But the Freedom Convoy as a movement, and some would say a rallying point for right-wing politics, is getting bigger and bigger. It has also been a bit of a rebuff to the image of Canada and Canadians held abroad. The Canadian protesters have raised over $9 million on Christian fundraising platform Give Send Go till now, with the website ignoring the Ontario government's court order to freeze the account last week. Earlier, GoFundMe cancelled the Freedom Convoy fundraiser after it turned unlawful and violent and began refunding the $10 million the protesters had raised. The convoy has also gone global. Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and New Zealand have seen versions of the Freedom Convoy protests recently. American truckers are planning their own convoy in California, Washington, New York, Ontario, Las Vegas, and more. Republicans, including former President of the United States, Donald Trump, have expressed their support for such a protest. I'll stop here for today. I hope you found some value in this video. If there are other international stories that you'd like us to cover, please tell us in the comments. We read all of them and reply as well. Also, do make a monetary contribution to Newsworthy so we can keep doing good journalism that you deserve. To stay up to date with the latest news without the anxiety attacks, make sure you're following us on Instagram and make sure you have hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you'd rather get your news on WhatsApp, you can simply scan this QR code, send us a message with your name, and that's it. Once a day, we'll send you one message with one link. It'll have everything you need, Newsworthy style. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your time today.